As you probably know, much of the history of African Americans has been hidden, or it's been omitted from the historical record. Don Barksdale was an outstanding all-around individual who rose and became quite prominent in the post-war era.
Don was, he was a forerunner in so many different things. He was like the first black All-American. 1947 at UCLA, in the days where the AAU championships were a big thing. And Don, with the Oakland Bittners, the Oakland Blue and Gold, they were called also. I mean, he went and played and won national championships. And also, he was like the first black Olympic basketball player.
He was a pioneer. He opened the door for a lot of other guys to make a lot of money.
Being a native of the Northern California, in particular the Berkeley area, it's hard to have lived in this region and not heard a lot of things about Don Barksdale. A lot of the trails he blazed in sports in this area and in college and in professional athletics are pretty much legendary.
Donald Barksdale is one of the great athletes the United States has ever produced. I mean, he's not as famous as Jackie Robinson, but just like Robinson, I mean, he was a multi-sport star.
Paying respect to those players that preceded you, not only in professional sports but in college and high school, is very important to understand the history and where it has come from to be in the position it's in today.
Everybody in the world knows who Michael Jordan is, and a good portion of the world knows Allen Iverson. I just think as a person, sometimes if you're in a profession, you like to know what started this, what made it so sweet for us.
It's sad when you go and speak to some of these youngsters today and you ask them, do they know any people? And not only African Americans, but some of the Caucasian players. Did you know who George Mikan was? No. Did you know who Earl Lloyd was? No. Did you know who Sweetwater Clifton was? No. Do you know who Don Barksdale was? No. Do you know who Shaquille O'Neal is? Yes.
Did you know who the first black NBA All-Star was?
First NBA black All-Star. No, I didn't. I didn't know that. And I still don't know that.
First black?
First black to make the NBA All-Star.
Would it have to be, that's a good question. I don't know my history too well.
Were you aware that that person was Don Barksdale?
I didn't know it was Don Barksdale. No, I didn't. I mean,
can you tell us a little bit about what you know of Don Barksdale?
Not too much, I mean, I heard of his name and I heard he was a great person.
I think their indifference to the pioneers on the race question doesn't have anything to do really with race. It has to do with their disdain for history in any form. I think it has to do with the fact that in the social revolution of the 60s, history became nothing. The past doesn't count. Now it's different. Well, I think the past counts very much.
I think we have to just allow them to understand that there were some outstanding people in this league before they got here. And for the young people to understand that this is part of their heritage.
Some of the older guys did a lot of work, took a lot of risks, paved the way so that other folks could do some things now. And I think we've lost that. I think that in many ways that's sad, because there's a lot of younger guys who've taken a lot for granted, and the older guys who paved the way for them.
One of the lines in my favorite song says, "A people without a knowledge of their history is like a tree without roots." And if you don't know where you came from, how are you going to get to where you're going? And I think the kids in today's society need to know how they got to where they are and how they can help go forward.
First of all, I think sports is important to our society. Sports has been a lot ahead of the curve a lot of times, particularly in terms of racial integration. The role that sports has played in breaking down racial barriers is really crucial. And so it's important for people to know the stories of Don Barksdale. It's just like to know the stories of Jackie Robinson. And I also think for youth, and particularly for minority youth, it's good to hear a story of someone like Donald Barksdale, because the way things are now is not the way it's always been.